Thanks again to Jamie. We are the Premium FPL podcast at premium_FPL on Twitter. We are now previewing game week 21. Where is the season going? Mindy looks like he was closing in a few game weeks ago, but class, they say form is temporary, class is permanent. So good to see him back down the leaderboard, slipping, which is always a nice start to the podcast, isn't it, Mindy? So I'm Callum, one half of the podcast, and here is the man himself.
Yeah, I couldn't be fucked recording this week, to be honest. I really could have done with just missing a week. Worst set of transfers of the season. It's just got, like, everything that's gone wrong with them has gone wrong. So I look forward to delving back into that pain later. All right, I've not even looked at what score we both got this week. I just wasn't able to face it. I was like, I'm just going to live it fresh as we do the podcast. So,
do you want to remind the listeners what your transfer was?
We'll get into it. Should we do the housekeeping stuff?
Yeah, go for it.
So
jump in the gun.
We're recording on Friday lunchtime. Very quick turnaround this week. So get this listened to, and then make your transfers for 11 o'clock Saturday morning. And just wanted to quickly mention the chap in our music intro, Mick McCarthy. He's back in management, which is good to see. The legend lives on. Football just wouldn't be the same without him, would it? So that's one bit of positivity I can cling on to this week.
It's about time you brought some positivity to the pod.
And then there's been I got a message at the weekend saying I needed to give a public apology on the podcast. I'm not really sure I did this, but apparently Varun, who's in our premium FPL prize league, submitted a question about his wildcard team with John Stones in, and I pissed all over it. I'm sure I was slating him for some other defender, but he says it was John Stones. So obviously John Stones has been a great shout over the past 4 or 5 weeks. So seeing as it means so much to you, Varun, I'll eat humble pie and say sorry on the podcast for you. There you go. I think is that it for housekeeping?
Yeah, no, it's always good to see a grieving apology from Mindy. Doesn't happen often enough.
Yeah, it was fully sincere, 100% meant it. Let's yeah, I'm sure your score was higher than mine. So yeah, you go first with the game week review.
Cool. So this game week just gone, game week 20. I got 53 points, but that was with the -4, so 49. So not too great, but I don't think the average was that great this week. 42 points. Started off really well. Brought in Cancelo. Who was the other guy I brought in? Cancelo and it's been on. Yeah, brought in Son as well. So Son didn't work out, but Cancelo did with a mighty 17. Yeah, other players that did well. Grealish got 8 again. It's good to see him ticking over. He looks one of the best players to watch in the league at the moment. FPL points haven't been coming the past few weeks, but good to see him delivering there. Antonio again with an assist, 5. And then the City triple up at the back. Cancelo 17, Stone 6, Diaz 6. So that was probably the highlight of my game week, was banking on a clean sheet there. Yeah, how about you?
Right, here we go. Strap in. So I had the 50-50 call between Foden and Gundogan, and fucking went Foden, and Gundogan's just on fire. So that was awful. And then to compound that, if it couldn't get any worse, the player I took out from -4 to bring in that third City player was our boy Soucek, who, you know, he's been so good to me. And then I don't know what I was thinking. I think it got into my head that I had 3 West Ham players: Antonio, Kufal, and Soucek. And there was this stat going around that all of Soucek's goals have come when Antonio hasn't been playing. So I think I just read into stuff like that a bit too much and was like, oh, well, you know, West Ham have got tricky fixtures at the moment as well. Who've they got? Liverpool, Aston Villa in the next 2. So I thought, I can live without him in the next 3, but it just didn't turn out that way at all. And the fact that the goals came so early in that game as well just made it so much worse. And flatmate Josh comes running in, screaming his face off to gloat in my face that I've just taken him out. So all in all, it was a fucking shite week basically. And the Kane injury has meant that the other transfer I made for Son looks awful now as well, because you don't really want investment in the Spurs attack when Kane's not there, because he's so integral to everything they do. So just a write-off week for me, I think.
Yeah. Funny you mentioned Josh there. I was going to ask you, have you got his number? I've just seen how well he's doing in the league compared to you. Thought he might be a good addition to the podcast.
I think. Well, yeah, he's not got any personality, so he wouldn't be able to add anything in terms of interests. But yeah, he is having a good season. It's his first season living with me. He's having a flyer. I think.
Your advice must be paying off.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you were in my shoes now, what would you? I've got a hold on Foden, haven't I? Or would you be? What are your thoughts on Gundogan? Because you don't have him either.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at bringing him in and moving away from Stones. As good as Stones has been, he's probably the least likely to. I know he got 2 goals in the double, but Diaz and Cancelo just have higher ceiling, just because Diaz looks more of a threat at set pieces on a continuous basis for me. So he was actually one that I was looking at bringing in for Soucek, but obviously that's Soucek's goals. The thing is about Soucek, I think you've done well transferring him out, because the games that you don't want him are the games that he scores. So he's on your bench anyway. So it's just a nightmare having him in my opinion.
No, but the thing is that I specifically made a plan with my team back in October, November, that I was going to play him every week. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what came over me.
I mean, if you've got him, you kind of have to play. Like, look at the Liverpool game this weekend. It's like, how do you bench him?
Because well, anyway, we'll talk about that in a bit. So the stuff we've got on the podcast this week, we've got so we'll talk about City again, because some people might still only have 2 City players, might be wondering who to get for their third one, and whether is it still time to get a third one. Kane's injury, Tottenham, should we still be looking at Tottenham, or do we just ignore now? Liverpool, like, are they back? Trent's back in the points, but I don't know. It's a weird one, isn't it? Like, I feel like every third week it's Liverpool are back and then they're not, and then impossible to call. And then I think the other thing we'll close out on this week is conversation on the strikers, because Bamford got subbed off. A lot of people have got him. I mean, he's had like 1 shot on target in the past 2 weeks or something. So is it time to move on to someone else up front? And yeah, we'll do the usual discussion on captains and premium planning. Should we get into full-on City discussion again?
Yeah, it feels like, like you say, we're talking about Liverpool and City every week, but that seems to be the 2 contentious points, especially with so many premiums out now. I've seen the top 5 out of 10 highest value players are actually unavailable for the next game week. So it's almost as if team value goes out the window for the next few weeks, because people can load up on whoever they want, really. In terms of City, it was good to see Cancelo's points finally pay off. It was just unfortunate for you that I'd brought him in for the game that he started to pay off. But he was brilliant in that game. I was watching that game I was watching on him quite intently, actually, and he was playing De Bruyne role when we had the ball. It's quite hard to describe, but as soon as we had the ball, he literally moved deep into that midfield position, and the whole team just went through him. Like, he was responsible for setting up attacks, and he was pretty much integral to this performance, the 5-0 on Tuesday.
So here's a question for you then.
Yeah.
Is he Is he a captaincy option?
I mean, Sheffield United at the weekend at home. I know Sheffield United played well against United. Sorry, Mindy. But yeah, for me, yeah, he was that good. Like, I know he scored a goal that Sheffield United stopped for, but even that finish left foot outside the box, like, you won't even bank on a midfielder scoring that. So for me, yeah, he is a definite captaincy option this weekend. If you don't have Gundogan, I'd say. I think City is still the strongest for a captaincy shout. Obviously, Spurs now, Son, Brighton away. That kind of looks less appealing now without Kane. But yeah, just focus on City so we don't move away too much.
Yeah.
I think Cancelo is a good captaincy option.
Okay, so for people that have 2 City players and they don't have Gundogan yet, would you say that's just a no-brainer transfer for this week now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the difficulty with me is I've got 3, but we've only got 2. And for me, 100%. I think he was subbed in the 50th minute on Tuesday. We were 3-0 up, and I think that shows you how much importance he has to the team now. Pep kind of wrapped him up in cotton wool, and I think that'll be a fixture going forward. If we have games wrapped up, he'll almost be treated as De Bruyne, like coming off 70th minute to protect from the next game and stuff. It's just phenomenal.
You said before budget's gone out the window and people can afford who they want.
Yeah.
Would there be any argument in your opinion to go for Sterling if there's people have no budgetary concerns, or do you think Gundogan's like a better asset than Sterling still?
I mean, he got 11 points on last game week, so you can't dismiss Sterling entirely, and he did look a bit better. But I saw a tweet going around midweek after Gundogan's display, and someone summed it up perfectly. They said if Gundogan was priced, as Sterling was priced, everyone would be rushing to get him in. It's almost as if that price puts you off, that 5.4 mil. I think it's gone up a bit now, actually, but that almost puts you off to an extent because you're like, oh, nah, I've got all this money, let's go Sterling. But the way City was setting up now and Gundogan so far forward, I think it's a no-brainer.
Well, for me, like, it wasn't really the price thing that got in my head with Gundogan over Foden. It was more like I was looking at his season history, like even back to like Dortmund, and I think his highest goal tally in a season was 7. So I was sort of looking at it like, you know, is he just in like a little purple patch, or is he suddenly a goal scoring midfielder out of nowhere? And yeah, I've kind of got it wrong. I sort of thought, well, Foden's more likely to be taking more shots. I think Foden is having more shots, but the chances that Gundogan gets are better chances from what it looks like.
He played in a pivot though at Dortmund, didn't he? Like this system.
Yeah,
he's not as like the chains are off. Really, he's not as disciplined in that midfield area. He kind of has a license to bomb forward.
It kind of reminds me a bit of the season when Yaya Toure started getting goals.
Yeah,
because historically, like, he wasn't a goal scoring midfielder, and then all of a sudden he just started getting goals, and everyone was, oh, it's not going to continue, but it did because he just turned into a different type of midfielder, which seems to be what's happened with Gundogan. So, the tricky thing for me though now is that if I do Foden to Gundogan, like Foden had chances in that game, didn't he?
Yeah,
he could have got points.
Yeah.
So,
one. It was a good save actually.
So
I think that was only Johnston's only save.
So yeah, I think for me, I'm going to give it another game or two, like to just sort of completely, what's the word, knee jerk out Foden. It could easily switch around, and I think can Foden get points this weekend because he was subbed off at 50 minutes as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. I think look, the team was that good first half. I think he'll look to keep that team on at the weekend. Maybe Mahrez might not play because he got 90, but other than that, I think it'd be pretty much.
That's my thoughts on it because I've got other transfers I want to do as well this week. But I think, you know, maybe if you've got nothing else to do and you're not happy with Foden, just get rid of him and get Gundogan in. Because I think the other thing with Gundogan is that once these fixtures end, because City, you've got 2 good fixtures still, Sheffield and Burnley. but then they get tougher: Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal. After that, in game weeks 23, 24, 25, and
Yeah.
you'd reckon that Gundogan's more nailed during those fixtures, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. And
So long term, he is probably the better option, like over. So yeah, at some point, I probably will have to make the switch. I just don't want to do it this week.
yeah, I'd argue if you have Diaz or Stones, not both, then I'd probably say Cancelo just as high up there for me for Gundogan bringing in, just because of the position he took up on Tuesday. It was, like I said, he was playing pretty much midfielder going forward. So I think he's just as important as Gundogan, just because he got the clean sheets as well.
Is there any more? And yeah, the other thing with obviously most people know now, but yeah, Gundogan's on pens, so don't forget that. Has there been anything on any updates on when De Bruyne is going to be back?
No, Pep said 4 weeks, didn't he? Which is probably about 8 game weeks in this current time because they're just relentless. But I think historically they've always come back a week or two earlier. I think Pep always overshots it, and he said 4 to 6 weeks. So I think you're probably looking at 3 to 4. But even still, probably got another 3 or 4 games yet, haven't we? Before you even like toy with the idea of bringing him back.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that Gundogan's goal scorer in run started when De Bruyne was in the team, so
Yeah, I wouldn't let that put you off.
yeah, so it's not even like even when De Bruyne is back, you might not want to move off of Gundogan for him anyway. So yeah, Gundogan's great. Basically, that's what we've learned from that. Next, if we move on, Tottenham.
Yeah.
So I brought in Son for De Bruyne last week, kind of with this fixture against Brighton in mind, thinking I'd captain Son in this game. But now that Kane is supposedly out, I mean, there's some doubt, but I mean, taking him off at half time is an aggressive bluff, isn't it?
Yeah, we were talking before the pod that there was that time, I think it was this season, where he said Son was out for a couple of weeks. And not only was he not out, he played the next game, and I think he hauled, didn't he? So I think that's always in the back of people's minds. But like you say, bringing him off at half time isn't like
against Liverpool.
It's not the best of bluffs.
Because the game where he took Son off at half time was against Newcastle, wasn't it?
Yeah,
which
they drew that game as well, didn't they? So
yeah.
it kind of backfired.
So yeah, I think it's a slightly different situation this time around. Like losing to Liverpool, why would you take Kane off at half time if he's not actually got a problem? Because they still could have got into that game at half time.
Yeah, definitely. They were well in the game, yeah. Third goal just killed them.
So yeah, I wouldn't, I mean, anything could happen, but I wouldn't put too much stock into that theory that he's lying this time.
No. Well, when Kane did go off, they had a bit of a resurgence, but like I said, third goal, and then they were just devoid of any creativity, really, because they got Højbjerg and Ndombele in there, and they're not, I wouldn't say either of them are like advanced playmakers. They're both really good in and around the halfway line, but that final third, I just don't think they've got anyone really, unless Bale comes back and plays that kind of Kane position. But he came on last night and looked so rusty still. So like you, I'm a bit unconvinced with Son. I'm going to keep him just because it's Brighton a game, and there's obviously other fires to put out with Kane. But yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm going to watch the game the weekend, see what they're like without the main man.
So should we talk about what you're doing with Kane in the striker section rather than now, or do you want to talk about it now?
It's up to you. I could touch on it now.
No, go on.
I think the standout option for me, just because I pretty much choose whoever I want, is DCL. I think Everton looked good again against Leicester, and I think the players are starting to come back now. James, obviously, great goal. Digne was back, and I think Decore and Allen are very close. So I think they've got a nice run starting with Newcastle at home at the weekend. So I think just from early on in the season, he's probably the man to go for. And striker's a bit of a problematic situation at the moment. Danny Ings isn't still getting the points, is he? Vardy's out. So I think DCL is probably the one there for the people who have Kane, I'd say.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll weigh up DCL compared to the other striker options in the last section. what would you say then to people who were thinking of getting like Son in this week to leave it now?
I think it's that classic case that we always say it's a hold if you've got, but don't buy in if you haven't got him. I'd say for that Brighton game.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Or
Yeah. I think now you can wait until game week 23, West Brom at home. Like, see if Kane gets back for that, and then pick one of them then. Because I think that in game week 23, I mean, we'll discuss it in the premium planning captaincy section, but yeah, Kane, Spurs options probably one of the best captain options that week. So yeah, I'm gonna do what you're doing though. Hold Son now that I've got him. Yeah, kind of made my bed there. Got to lie in it. Liverpool. I hate talking about Liverpool because like no matter what you say, they do the opposite. So it's just a mess, isn't it? Like they just seem to go through so many peaks and troughs, so inconsistent. Have you got any sort of lucid advice to say about Liverpool, or is it just a case of hit and hope?
Well, Salah blanked again last night, but obviously had a goal ruled out, and he looked really threatening. And Mane looked brilliant. But like you say, we've had this so many times with this podcast this year. We say, oh, Liverpool looking great. Trent was looking great last night again. I think he got 11 points. But then it was only last week we were saying Trent hit the most crosses, incompleted crosses in like Premier League history last week. So just the turbulent run of Liverpool is just crazy because they're obviously still, the team's still there other than the centre halves, and they're capable of performance against Spurs. But I just think if they concede an early goal, and with Henderson and Phillips, it looks like now at centre back with Matip and Fabinho both out, I just think that West Ham game, West Ham could easily get an early goal and the team falls apart. So you just can't really predict what's going to happen. And I think a lot of people will be bringing in Mane, Trent after the last night, and I'm just not fully convinced. I could be wrong. They could both smash it, and there's a lot of money to play with now. So, as we've talked about previously, so the double up on Salah and Mane, if they start to click into gear, but it's just so hard to call.
Yeah,
what's going to happen
on Trent? So something the official Premier League account tweeted out was that over the last 6 game weeks, he's taken more shots than any other FPL defender. So he's had 12 shots.
Wow, that's more than Cancelo.
Well, unless the official Fantasy Premier League are lying to us, I don't know.
I know. I trust it. I just just surprised
because he takes free kicks as well, doesn't he? Whereas Cancelo doesn't. So
yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I mean, if you've got the money to play with and you fancy him, then it's not the worst shout. But yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. I want to see a bit of consistency before I dive back into the Liverpool defense. I'd want to know Matip could maybe play a few more games rather than half a game and be injured and all that. So, you said West Ham's a tricky fixture.
Yeah, the problem after that is they've got Brighton at home, which is, if they're fully firing, that's going to be a lot of points. But then Brighton, I was reading actually, I think going off at XG, they're 7th, like going off at XG and XGC combined, they're like 7th in the league. So they're obviously playing good football. They're just not getting the results. I know they lost only 1-0 to City. So I don't think it's foregone conclusion, that Brighton game. Oh, my Alexa's going off. Alexa, stop. Sorry about
that. Showing off your
I don't know what happened there.
Setup for you.
This is where I go for my advice.
Is that what you do? You captaincy chat every week. Ask Alexa.
Alexa, why is Mindy so bad at FPL? No, sorry, joking. No, Alexa, stop. Sorry, I was joking. Sorry.
God, I've lost my thread. We're talking about Liverpool.
Yeah, I was just saying that Brighton, that they're not as much of a whipping boy, I'd say, as others. Could be wrong.
Yeah. So now that we don't fancy Tottenham this week, Kane being out, and you were saying Salah did look threatening, like would you say that Liverpool are kind of Would you say Salah or Mane are captaincy options, or is it just all on City for you this week?
No, I'd probably say Liverpool are right up there. You're always tempting to captain Salah, aren't you? Remember that game week 1 Furo where said I wasn't going to captain, did it, and live on my sword on that one. I think they're always tempting to captain, and they did look threatening last night, and they'll probably take a lot of confidence from that. So yeah, it's tempting.
Yeah, and West Ham conceded 2 to Crystal Palace. Game week just gone. So
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if I had Gundogan, I'd just go. I probably would go City, but given that I don't have Gundogan, I am considering Salah. But yeah, it's a tricky one. It's just so hard to know what Liverpool are turning up week in, week out this season. Anything else?
I mean, I could go super aggressive and bring in Trent for Stones, Gundo in for Soucek, and DCL in for Kane, -8 and captain Gundo, but that would be. Hits hasn't been a bad shout this year. Like, they've actually paid off more often than not, so it might not be a bad shout.
Well, yeah, my hit this week paid off amazingly.
Well, maybe for one of us.
Fucking four goals and 6 bonus points. Just absolute. Should we get into the strikers?
Yeah, or lack of strikers. Who? Obviously Kane out, so there's going to be a big void there. He's 43.9%. You can sort by form, can't you?
For me, the 3 to sort of be looking at are
Interesting.
Antonio,
yeah,
Calvert-Lewin, as you mentioned, and then Watkins.
Yeah, he's trolled me too many times, or Watkins.
Because you were saying how good Grealish looked, and at the end of the day, who's he creating chances for?
Yeah, I can't believe they lost that game actually, but hopefully they don't. A team like that isn't always near the top historically, when they get one defeat, it kind of affects them a lot bigger than the other big teams, in my opinion. So it'd be interesting to see how they bounce back from that.
So Watkins fixtures: Southampton away, West Ham at home, Arsenal at home. But Dominic Calvert-Lewin's fixtures are Newcastle at home, Leeds away, United away, and then Fulham at home. So yeah, apart from United away, Dominic Calvert-Lewin definitely has the edge in terms of fixtures. But he costs a bit more. But like we've been saying, money doesn't really matter, does it?
No, unless I think anyone will be struggling to spend the whole money unless they've got the Liverpool defenders and stuff.
So I think if you've already got Grealish, it's probably an easier shout to go for Calvert-Lewin, isn't it?
Yeah, especially for this weekend, because Newcastle probably look the worst team in the Premier League at the moment. So that home fixture does look nice.
So Everton's attacking stats haven't been great recently, but they've played West Ham, who can be a decent defensive team. They've played Wolves, who on their day can be tight, but not as consistent this season. And then they've played Leicester, who are also having a great season. So I wouldn't read too much into their numbers the past few weeks. And as you said at the top of the podcast, Luke Dean's back, who just racks up chances for Calvert-Lewin on his head every week when he's fit. Rodriguez is back, and the central midfielders are going to be back soon as well. So
yeah, Doucouré's back. He was only suspended, so it's just Alan missing. Looking at this table,
so basically the team which was flying at the start and Calvert-Lewin getting points every week, he's basically back.
Yeah.
So I think it is a great option to get Calvert-Lewin in this week. And loads of people are Bamford. What's his ownership? 48%. He was subbed off at 59 minutes in the last game, which is quite surprising.
Yeah, he didn't look great.
He's tended to be a 90-minute man since game week 3, but barring the odd couple around Christmas. And his shots have just dropped off completely, the amount of shots he's taken. And I think we've talked about the amount of shots Like the amount of chances he gets has been the main reason to have him because his finishing's not the best. So if he's not taking many shots and his finishing isn't good, it doesn't really bode well for him. I mean, it might just be a blip, but I think the way the fixtures have turned out with Calvert-Lewin having this great little mini run and Bamford having Leicester away, Everton at home, Crystal Palace at home, it's definitely a great week to make that switch, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. The only other one, obviously we talked about him last week, but he didn't play that Sheffield United game, is Cavani. But then the rotation risk was obviously in full effect on Tuesday, so you got to be wary of when he's going to play or not. But I've been so impressed with him. It was a strange decision to rest him. I think Ollie just probably thought they could walk that game, and it didn't turn out like that. So I think he'll be back the weekend. He'll definitely play this weekend. Well, I'll be very, very surprised if he doesn't. So who've United got? They got Arsenal, haven't they? Yeah, I know they've had a bit of resurgence, but you'd fancy United to come, if they are to win the league, they're going to want to come back and prove a point there.
I just think though that with Cavani, it's like, yeah, you might be confident he's going to play this week, but long term, you'll just be wondering, you'll be waiting on the United team sheet every week thinking, anxious, is he starting or not? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe if, the other thing to maybe think about is that what game? So we're in game week 21 this week. Some people might be wildcarding in a few weeks. So maybe you could make some short-term transfers knowing that you're going to wildcard soon. But otherwise, yeah, Cavani's just it's a short-sighted transfer, I'd say.
Yeah. I get that. I'm just trying to look for alternatives because there's not much around in striker positions.
While we're on double game weeks, I'm just going to quickly check the man Ben Crellin's Twitter feed. Has there been any updates on what might be happening? Because Southampton,
not yet.
Southampton, there's something going on with Southampton and Everton, isn't there? One of them might have a double soon. Because are they playing each other in the FA Cup or something? And then it depends on that. Hang on.
Possibly. I kind of left it this week because there's not been any significant update. Because I think the 23 and stuff, like the near term, it was kind of reliant on the FA Cup fixtures going their way, and I think anyone who could have had a double won. So I don't think there's going to be any update too soon. It'll probably be after the 5th round, I'd say, which is next weekend.
Right. Okay.
Oh no, it's midweek, so not next week, the week after. So all midweek, which is interesting. Is that the first time for the FA Cup?
It's a weird season, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm just going to... I think... I heard something about maybe Everton or Southampton having a double coming soon, potentially depending on something, but might have got that wrong then. Wouldn't be the first time I got double game week news.
I'd love to... there should be a reality TV series of you figuring out double game weeks. I've watched that.
But yeah, I think so. But basically, if you were going to order the 3 strikers at the moment between Calvert-Lewin, Antonio, and Watkins, how would you order it?
Is this going off my team or just in general? Because I've already got 2 Villa. Okay.
Yeah, just for advice to anyone. I'll go first.
For me, just
while you think.
All right. Okay. Go on. Sorry, dead air.
I think I put Antonio top still, despite Calvert-Lewin's better fixtures, because West Ham have the form and momentum already there, and I don't think Liverpool at home this week. As we've talked about, they can easily just concede early and unravel. So yeah, I put Antonio top, and then I'd go Calvert-Lewin second, and then in third I'd have Watkins. Yeah,
I'm happy to agree with that. the only reason I'd put DCL in front, possibly, is like you say, the fixtures are just good. I think the top of the fixture tracker at the moment, which is the next 4 games, they've obviously got Newcastle, Leeds, who give up a million chances a game, United away, which a bit tough, and then Fulham at home. So those are great fixtures, and you know he's going to play. Which
just while you mentioned Leeds, should we move on to the premium planning segment?
Okay.
Yeah. So we talked last week in this premium planning segment about Leicester's fixtures, because who have they got? They're playing Leeds this weekend, aren't they? Yeah. So
Leeds, Fulham, Wolves, which is a nice little run.
So yeah, and I heard on another podcast that against Newcastle, Leeds conceded 22 shots, which a Newcastle team that creates fuck all, creating shot chances 22 times. So what will Leicester do to Leeds?
The only thing that puts you off is no Vardy, doesn't it? So they've got no focal point, really. I don't think Perez played up there last 2. You obviously don't fancy Kelechi. So yeah, it was probably Maddison or Barnes, isn't it?
But but Barnes still got points. He's been getting consistent points, and there's Maddison as well. So I think a Leicester option is a great one this week to attack Leeds, basically, and then Fulham the week after. So still a decent fixture. And that actually brings me on to what I'm thinking of doing for my transfers. Like I'm either looking at bringing one of the Leicester midfielders in to attack that Leeds game, or Calvert-Lewin, because Calvert-Lewin's got Newcastle and then Leeds the week after.
Wait, are you copying me here?
Wait, what about?
You always have a go at I'm copying your transfers, and I've just bigged up DCL for half an hour, and you're suddenly bringing him in.
He was always in my
yeah.
He was always in my watch list.
Mindy's watch list.
It's a tricky one, because to bring in one of the Leicester midfielders, they'll have to get rid of probably Rashford, which could bite, but he's not looked great in the past couple. He looked really ineffective against Sheffield at the midweek. So I could do it, or I could just do both for -4. But I think the fact that I'm still reeling from my last -4 is probably going to mean I'm not brave enough to do that. But there's definitely an argument to say that -4 could pay off this week with the respective fixtures over the next 3 for Leicester and Everton.
Yeah, so, such a weird season. I wouldn't put anyone off a hit this year, just because you're kind of firefighting week to week. Because I think the injuries are going to ramp up now because people are playing every midweek.
I think though, like the normal rules kind of apply though. Like if you're taking a hit, it kind of has to be. It sort of has to be like a long-term transfer. Like don't take a hit for a punt or something, like for something short-term. Because you do want to give yourself the best chance of that the -4 points you're taking paying off. But yeah, they often do. If you like, especially if you're using a -4 to bring in who you captain in or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Are there any fixture trends apart from Leicester and Everton, the ones we talked about, that caught your eye?
I mean, City have got a nice little. That's only 2 fixtures in it. They've got Sheffield United and then Burnley, which is 2 nice ones. But then they got Liverpool and Spurs. I can't think of anyone else over a sustained period that's got a really nice run and team that's in form.
What about a downward trend? So Leeds is probably the one, because we're talking about targeting Leeds for the next 2 for Leicester and Everton. So they've got Leicester, Everton, then Crystal Palace at home, and then Arsenal away. I don't see them blowing any of those teams away, and they just haven't looked as good recently. So, I mean, I think Bamford will be on the chopping block for a lot of people this week. Yeah,
definitely. One other that's just struck to me is probably Chelsea. So they've got Burnley, then Spurs, but without Kane might not be as tricky. Sheffield United, Newcastle, Southampton. So if Tuchel can get them firing. The thing that was interesting for me about Chelsea was the wing backs. They were pretty much playing as wingers, Chilwell and Hudson-Odoi. So that's probably it. I know Hudson-Odoi is not down as a defender, but Chilwell is. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop. They're probably the positions that I'd look to target for Chelsea.
Yeah, it's just he had one training session before that game, didn't he? So it's hard.
Yeah, you don't know who's going to play.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a lottery to know what his first 11 will be. Like, because it might not be the team that he played against Wolves. He might have put, that wing back system might have just been to, try to
stopgap,
Wolves, and so yeah, I think with the other team, I'd rather target Everton or Leicester probably over Chelsea, just because you sort of who their first 11s are.
Yeah,
you don't want to be bringing in rotation risks in COVID season, do you?
No, you're right.
What about, so should we talk about captains for the next few? I mean, I'm not really set, but we can talk about the options. So we kind of mentioned
this week's probably City, Liverpool, or Leicester, like you say, just because of how many chances Leeds are offering up.
Yeah, it is like you say, just a little bit annoying they don't have Vardy, but I think Leeds just give up so many chances, and it'll play into the way Leicester play. Like, I think in the corresponding game earlier in the season, Leicester dealt with them quite convincingly, I think, and I think it'll probably be the same. It'll probably be the same. So, yeah, I think it's probably a City option, Gundogan or Cancelo, and then quite close between Liverpool and Leicester, I'd say. What about next week?
Next week, probably Liverpool, Brighton. I know I talked about Brighton not offering up too many chances, but that's probably stand out alongside United at home to Southampton. Southampton aren't playing too well recently. And then probably City again, away to Burnley.
What about Dominic Calvert-Lewin against Leeds?
Not for me. Not that game. Just because Liverpool and United have got a nice fixture. I think that would be a bold decision. I think this week it's a bit more up in the air just because there's not too many standout fixtures, but I think it'd be Liverpool or United for me. Right, unless would you be tempted by DCL? But it depends how DCL looks this week, I guess. If he gets a hat trick against Newcastle, then possibly.
I think I would be tempted, yeah, because like we said, Liverpool are inconsistent. We don't really know how they're gonna. And the points kind of have been switching between Mane and Salah. So I think the good thing with Everton is that that when they're scoring, Calvert-Lewin's most often, like the amount of times he's involved in their goals is, I don't have the number to my head, but yeah, it's high. And then United have been you're kind of not sure. Like, if United don't look great against Arsenal this weekend, like, you wouldn't be confident captaining them against Southampton, I don't think.
Yeah, fair enough.
So yeah, I think that's another reason to bring in Calvert-Lewin for me. I think over the Leicester option is that just it gives me an extra captain option the week after. And then quickly before we start wrapping up, game week 23. So
Spurs probably, if Kane's back, that'd probably be a big one. Then you can go Kane or Son against West Brom. Who else? Liverpool play City that weekend. United play Everton. Chelsea at Sheffield United possibly, if they're clicking into gear. You got 2 more game weeks before that one, so there might be someone who emerges from the pack.
Yeah, if Kane's back, it's definitely a Spurs option that week, isn't it? I think that's the standout.
Yeah, that's the standout. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I hope he is back by then, because it'd be good to have a game week where there's just a standout option and there's not so many options to consider. Although it does make it more interesting when everyone's captain someone different. So
yeah, especially when the template gets very similar. Although there's that many injuries at the moment, people's squads are quite different.
And we've not got any questions this week. Is there anything else we need to cover before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. Enjoyed that. Thought it was a good pod. Hopefully, people out there remember to like, subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube or via the pod.
I didn't enjoy this pod for obvious reasons because awful wank week for me.
Wank week.
Just yeah, it's one of those weeks where you're just like, why do I even play this fucking game?
Tune in next week for some more positivity.
But I mean, me crying on the podcast, I think that's probably what keeps people coming back. If we were both having great weeks every week and we were just like, oh, this is amazing, people would be like, fuck these smug pricks, and no one would be interested.
Instead, just fuck one smug prick instead.
Yeah. I think yeah, that's probably about right. A good note to end on. Goodbye from the smug prick and goodbye from the negative nonce. Why have I just called myself a nonce? But yeah. I'll let you end. I'll let you end it.
On that note, thanks again. We'll see you all next week for another game week.
See you later.